My name is Stuart Smith. I'm on the board of Abundant Housing Vancouver, and I'm speaking in support of rezoning 1805 Larch. I've only been here for a few minutes, but I've already heard a few accusations about our organization, so I feel the need to emphasize that Abundant Housing Vancouver is an all-volunteer, self-funded nonprofit. We believe that housing is a human right and that Vancouver's destiny is to be a city for all. We advocate for homeless shelters, social housing, public housing, and rental housing, especially in exclusive, low-density neighborhoods such as Kitsilano. Rezoning 1805 Larch Street will not resolve the regional housing shortage, nor will it be all things to all people, but it will allow people who cannot afford a detached house the opportunity to share Kitsilano and contribute to making Kitsilano and Vancouver a better place. I've heard a lot of speakers and some councillors talk about the success of Kits-style zoning. I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to say whether it's successful or not, but I would note that the planning department says that in 1996, 22% of Kitsilano population lived in low-income households, but today only 14% do. So whatever the success of Kits zoning is or is not, it has been slowly gentrifying over the last 20 years, and we should ask whether we want to try to put a stop to that. I also heard some people talking about existing rental rates in Kitsilano, and I would ask that everyone remember that these homes are not available. A two-bedroom for $1,500 is wonderful for the person who's in it, but doesn't do anything for the people who are looking for a home. And finally, we've heard a lot about neighborliness. We've heard a lot of questions about whether this proposed building is neighborly. I find this puzzling. I've always interpreted neighborly as being a quality of people, not buildings. I'm not sure how 1805 Larch is or is not neighborly. However, I do think I know what it means when a person is neighborly. Neighborly means smiling at friends, acquaintances, even strangers as you walk down the sidewalk. Neighborly means helping new neighbors with directions, restaurant recommendations. Neighborly means welcoming new neighbors, even if their home looks different than yours. I also think I know what the quality of neighborliness in a person is not. Neighborly is not referring to your neighbor's home as a ghetto. Neighborly is not referring to your neighbor's home as a bulldozer. And neighborly is not implying that your neighbor's home will destroy Kitsilano while insisting that your home contributes to Kitsilano. At public meetings such as this, we tolerate all manner of insults and slurs directed toward the homes of people who live in apartments, invective that we do not tolerate in other circumstances. My proposal for neighborliness tonight regarding 1805 Larch is that perhaps the issue is not how neighborly this building is or is not, but how neighborly its neighbors are. I live in an apartment building that, regardless of anyone's aesthetic preference, has been my home for 25 years. I have a short story to tell you about the neighborliness of people who live in apartments. Last week, my fridge died. My building manager quickly ordered a new one and offered me a loaner. But it was late evening, the loaner wouldn't get there till the next day, I'd be at work, I'd have to go 24 hours without a fridge. If I knew nothing about the people who live in apartments except what I have learned at this hearing, I would have to assume that I was sunk, that my appeals for help would go unheard, door knocks unanswered, and my food all gone to waste. But of course, that is not what happened. Two neighbors immediately and enthusiastically agreed to take a share of my food until it was all sorted. The one who took my coffee cream even gave me their spare key so I could go into their apartment at 6 a.m. even though they would be asleep and get cream for my coffee. I was surprised and incredibly grateful, and it was wonderful. That's what neighborliness is. Councillor Carr, in the summer of 2018, you asked me, thank you. You asked me if I had ever met anyone from a neighborhoods association. I was standing here and I had expressed frustration that residents association often opposed buildings like 1805 Larch, claiming a lack of consultation when I felt that they had been dominating city planning for decades. I had to admit I had not met anyone from such a group, and you suggested this would be a good idea. So I went back out in the foyer and introduced myself to Larry Benj, who I think you'll hear from shortly. We met for coffee in Kitsilano, and Larry Benj asked me if members and supporters of Abundant Housing believed in community. I was caught off guard. I don't remember how I answered. I couldn't understand how believing in Vancouver for all translated into a lack of community. I didn't come away feeling that we agreed, but I did come away seeing Larry Benj as a reasonable person and not a caricature or a nemesis. And so I will take inspiration from Councillor Carr and ask that regardless of how this proposal is decided, if you believe that people who live in apartment buildings will destroy your neighborhood, please go meet some people who live in rental apartments. Be a good neighbor. Understand why they choose to live in a rental apartment, even if that isn't for you, even if they make you nervous. Welcome them anyways, and be a good neighbor. Thank you. I urge you to approve this project.